The bouquet was still in my hands when I found them. My fingers were trembling, gripping the soft white roses like they could somehow hold me upright. She didn't see me at first. Too busy laughing, had thrown back, her delicate shoulders bare beneath the silk robe I bought for her. And the woman pressing kisses into her neck? Oh, she saw me. She locked eyes with me the second I stepped into the hotel suite, and something cruel flickered across her face like satisfaction. I wasn't sure which part shattered more violently, my heart or the illusion. I dropped the bouquet. It hit the marble floor with a soft thud, petals scattering like something dying. Kenzie, my fiancé said, spinning toward me, her face draining of color. This isn't what it looks like. Oh, the cliché. I would have laughed if I didn't feel like vomiting. My voice was calm, eerily so. Really? Because it looks like you're fucking your maid of honor an hour before our wedding. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Behind her, Ava smirked, leaning against the vanity like she'd won. She probably had. I turned without another word. I didn't want to hear excuses. I didn't want to cry. I didn't even want to scream. I wanted to burn everything. Starting with that damned wedding. I didn't make a scene. I made an exit. Silent. Devastated. Dressed in white. Guests were arriving as I walked past them, stunned faces turning to follow me, like I was some ghost bride haunting her own ceremony. But I didn't care. I needed air. I needed out. I didn't stop until I reached the fountain outside the hotel, tearing off my veil, my heels, my dreams. I was still gasping when a sleek black car pulled up beside the curb like some villain entering on cue. The window rolled down, and there she was. Elise fucking Langford. Cold. Rich. Breathtaking. And the one woman my now ex-fiancé hated more than anyone in the world. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice was like ice slicing through the summer air. Get in. Why? I asked, mascara streaked and broken. Because you deserve better, she said. And I have a proposition. I stared at her. Elise Langford didn't do pity. She didn't do kindness. She did power and precision and 10-figure deals closed with a glance. And now she was offering what, exactly? Revenge? Rescue? Something darker? My heart thudded like it recognized a new danger. Or maybe it was something else entirely. Aren't you supposed to hate her? I whispered. I do, she said, gaze never leaving mine. That's why I want to marry you. I froze. I actually blinked like I misheard her. What? You heard me, Elise said coolly. Marry me. Make it real. Let her watch the whole world worship you while she rots in the consequences of what she threw away. Why me? I asked, my voice cracking. Because you're beautiful when you're broken, she said, eyes glinting, and I want to see what you look like when you're powerful. I didn't know what shocked me more, her words or how much they awakened something in me. Something raw, reckless, starving. I stepped forward. I shouldn't have. I should have walked away, processed, healed. But I didn't. I was angry. I was hurt. And something about Elise Langford's gaze made me feel like I could be more than a heartbroken bride. I could be dangerous. Fine, I said. Let's ruin her. The door opened. I slid into the leather seat beside the coldest, most dangerous woman I'd ever met. And maybe, just maybe, the only one who could make me feel alive again. The silence in Elise Langford's car was surgical, sharp, cold, sterile. It was the kind of silence that made you aware of every breath you took, like even inhaling too loudly would be a violation. I kept my gaze forward, trying not to let my reflection in the tinted window distract me. I looked like a ghost bride. Veil gone. Makeup ruined. Hair falling out of its elegant chignon. I looked like someone who had just had her entire world detonated, because I had. Elise didn't look at me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't offer a tissue, or a hand, or a soft word. And weirdly, I appreciated that. I didn't want comfort. I wanted clarity. I wanted the world to stop spinning. Where are we going? I asked finally, voice raw. To my penthouse, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You said yes. I said yes to the idea, I said slowly. Not to you owning me. She turned her head then, just slightly, those glacial blue eyes cutting into me like scalpels. Kenzie, she said coolly, I don't do ownership. I do contracts. Clear, unbreakable, with terms we both agree to. So, this is a business deal? Isn't every marriage? She replied, and for a second, I hated how logical that sounded. I didn't answer. My thoughts were a swirl of betrayal and disbelief and something else, something I wasn't ready to name. Elise was known for being ruthless. She made headlines for bankrupting companies with a signature. She terrified CEOs twice her age. She didn't smile, she didn't date publicly, and she absolutely didn't show up at weddings she wasn't invited to. And yet she was there, right when I crumbled.
Why?
The elevator to her penthouse was silent too, the kind of quiet that buzzes against your skin. When we stepped into this sprawling luxury apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows, polished marble, impossibly expensive art, I felt even more out of place. I was a shattered bride in the lair of a billionaire ice queen. Sit, she said, pointing to a sleek leather couch. I didn't move. You're not my boss. You agreed to this. I agreed to nothing, I snapped. I was heartbroken and humiliated, and you offered me a lifeline made of razor blades. Elise arched a brow, unbothered. And yet you got in the car. Maybe because I was out of options. Or maybe, she said, walking slowly toward me, heels clicking like punctuation, you realized you're more than what she reduced you to. I swallowed hard. Her presence was suffocating in a way that didn't feel like fear. It felt like pressure, heat, danger. You said you had a proposition, I said, ignoring the way my pulse quickened. Let's hear it. Elise sat down across from me, legs crossed, posture perfect. Marry me. Publicly. Legally. For 6 months. 6. Long enough for it to look real. Long enough to destroy her. And what do you get out of this? Control, she said simply. There's a board vote coming. Investors doubt my relatability. My capacity for connection. A marriage softens my image. So, I'm your PR stunt, I said bitterly. No, Elise said, leaning forward, her voice low and lethal. You're the woman I'm going to elevate into a queen. And in return, you'll make her life hell without ever lifting a finger. The way she said it made something twist inside me. It wasn't just vengeance. It was seduction. The idea of walking red carpets with Elise Langford. Of showing the world what Kenzie Bishop looked like when she wasn't the jilted bride, but the one being worshipped, desired, draped in power and designer silk. And after 6 months? I asked. We file for divorce. Quietly. I give you a settlement large enough to make Ava and your ex choke. Why me? I asked again. You could pick anyone. Any model, actress, heiress. But none of them would sting her like you will, she said, her eyes glittering with cruel delight. And none of them intrigue me like you do. My breath caught. So this is personal. Deeply. I stared at her, at the sharp line of her jaw, the cold fire in her gaze, the way she radiated complete control. I should have said no. I should have run. But all I could think about was the look on Ava's face when she saw me again. Wearing Elise's ring. Standing beside the woman she despised. And for once winning. I want a clause, I said. Elise tilted her head. Go on. No touching unless I initiate it. She smiled. It was slow, dangerous, and devastating. Afraid you'll fall for me? Afraid you'll try to use me, I snapped. I don't fall. Neither do I, she said softly. But we'll pretend, won't we? I reached out, took the pen she offered, and signed the contract she slid in front of me. In that moment, I felt something shift inside me. A spark igniting. A game beginning. She offered her hand, and when I took it, her fingers were colder than I expected, but her grip was strong. Final. Binding. Welcome to the Langford Empire, she said. Let's make the world believe we're in love. And somehow, that last word didn't sound nearly as fake as it should have. The ring was heavier than I expected. Platinum, impossibly elegant, and cold against my skin. Just like her. Elise hadn't wasted a second. Within 24 hours of our agreement, she had a stylist in her penthouse, a PR team on a call, and a press release drafted so polished it read like poetry. Heiress and media mogul Elise Langford surprises the world with unexpected engagement to artist Kenzie Bishop, just one day after Kenzie's very public heartbreak. The article hadn't even hit the digital front page before my phone exploded with messages. People I hadn't heard from in years suddenly cared about me. My name, once tethered to whispered sympathy and pitying glances, was now everywhere, shimmering beside hers. I was no longer the girl who'd been left at the altar. I was the woman who landed the most untouchable billionaire in the city. We were photographed that night, leaving her building hand in hand. Elise played the role effortlessly, stoic but protective, her fingers laced with mine, her body close enough to imply intimacy, far enough to remind the world she belonged to no one. The cameras loved her. And suddenly they loved me too. I wore a black dress she'd chosen, custom, minimalist, devastatingly backless. My hair had been redone, my makeup fixed to perfection, and yet none of it felt like me. I smiled for the cameras. I clutched her arm. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. I leaned in when they wanted a shot of us, whispering sweet nothings. Elise didn't whisper anything.
She didn't need to.
Her hand on my lower back was enough to make my skin burn. When we got into the car afterward, I exhaled for the first time in hours. That was insane, I said, tugging off my heels. Elise didn't look at me. That was tame. Seriously? We're just getting started. Her tone was clipped, efficient, always in control. I wondered if she ever let herself unravel, if she ever laughed without calculating how it looked. I doubted it. You didn't have to touch me that much, I muttered. Her eyes flicked to mine, cold and unreadable. It was for the cameras. You could have warned me. You agreed to the performance. I didn't agree to being manhandled. Elise raised a brow. If you think that was manhandling, darling, you've lived a very sheltered life. My cheeks flushed. Not from embarrassment, anger, or something worse. Something warm and unwelcome. Do you enjoy this? I asked. Controlling people? No, she said. I enjoy results. And right now, the results are excellent. The internet believes we're in love. Your ex is spiraling. My board is delighted. And you? She leaned in slightly. You look like a goddess in that dress. I swallowed. That shouldn't have flustered me.
It was just another line.
Another part of the illusion. But there was something about the way she said it, flat sure, like it wasn't meant to be kind or cruel, just true. Where are we going now? I asked. Home. You're home. She glanced at me like I was being slow. Ours. My pulse skipped. We're living together? Of course. What kind of married couple wouldn't? It's not real, I said quickly.
No.
But they don't know that. She turned her head to look at me fully. The press will expect photos. Maybe interviews. Definitely sightings. And if they don't see affection, they'll see through us. So, what? Do I just follow you around and pretend I'm obsessed with you? Yes. What if I can't fake it? Her lips curved just barely. You'll manage. The penthouse was bigger than most hotels. I'd seen it briefly before, but now Elise walked me through each room like she was preparing me for a stage performance. There will be visitors, she said as we passed the gallery-like hallway lined with abstract art. You'll have to play the part convincingly. So, PDA. Within reason. Sharing a bed?
She paused.
We'll keep the master suite for appearances. You can sleep in the guest room. But when people are here, yes, we share. I nodded, pretending I wasn't tense. You think of everything. I have to. I didn't get this far by being careless. What about feelings? I asked. What if people think we're catching real ones? Elise turned to face me. then we're doing our job right. I wasn't sure why that answer unsettled me. That night, I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. The sheets smelled like her, clean, sharp, expensive. Everything in this place did. She was in the next room. Or maybe she wasn't. I hadn't seen her after dinner. Silent, awkward, seated across from each other with 2 glasses of wine between us and 1,000 unspoken things. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing. A calendar notification. Breakfast with Ava. 10 a.m. Café Marlowe. Paparazzi, likely. I stared at the screen in disbelief. I rushed out to find Elise already dressed in slate gray slacks and a black silk blouse that looked like it had been poured over her body. You set up a meeting with her? She asked to see you. Why would I say yes? Because she needs closure. And you need to show her what she lost. And you're just letting me go alone? Elise stepped closer, adjusting the collar of my coat like it was hers to touch. I'll be across the street, watching. But this moment, it's yours. I swallowed the sudden nerves. And what do? Smile. Let her see you glowing. Let her wonder how I make you happier than she ever did. That's twisted, I whispered. It's perfect, she replied. And as I left, my heels clicking against marble, I couldn't tell if I was more terrified of seeing Ava or of how much Elise's approval suddenly mattered to me. Café Marlowe was the kind of place where secrets were served in porcelain cups and scandals unfolded behind oversized sunglasses. It was discreet but open, trendy but intimate, the perfect stage for a public reunion meant to look accidental. I arrived exactly at 9:58, just as Elise instructed. My coat was draped off one shoulder, my hair pulled into a low, effortless knot, and the diamond on my left hand caught the light like it was born to be photographed. I hated how much I cared about the impression I was about to make. I hated more that I wondered if Elise would approve. Ava was already seated when I walked in. She looked fragile. Her once meticulously styled blonde waves were slightly frizzy at the ends, her makeup thinner than usual, like she hadn't slept well. Her expression, however, was anything but soft. She watched me approach, like she wasn't sure if she wanted to cry or scream. Kenzie, she said, standing halfway, not knowing whether to hug me or run. You came. I gave her a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes and sat down across from her, crossing my legs slowly, deliberately. Of course I came. I always loved a dramatic confrontation over overpriced coffee. She flinched, and for a second I felt bad. Then I remembered the way she'd looked in that hotel room, her skin flushed, her laugh soft, her robe falling open as she wrapped herself around my maid of honor. Look, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, she began, wringing her hands. But I need you to know it wasn't about you. It was a mistake. A mistake is forgetting a birthday. A mistake is burning toast. What you did was a choice, I said sharply. A repeated one, from what I hear. Her jaw clenched. So you've talked to her. I didn't have to. The betrayal was obvious. The performance, less so. Her eyes darted down to my ring. Is it real? What do you think? Elise Langford doesn't date. She barely speaks to people. And now she's marrying you. Maybe I'm special. You hate her, she said bitterly. You always have. I leaned forward, letting the ring catch her attention again. Funny how quickly hate can evolve into something more electric. Ava's face twisted with something that looked too messy to be jealousy and too angry to be regret. She's using you. You know that, right? You're just another pawn in her cold little empire. I tilted my head. Maybe. But I'd rather be a queen in her empire than a doormat in your fantasy. That landed. I saw it in her eyes. The crack, the sting, the realization that I wasn't broken. I was dangerous now. Weaponized. Loved, or at least convincingly so, by the one woman she'd always loathed. Do you love her? She asked, voice quieter now. Does it matter? It does to me. I gave her a long look, then said, I don't think your feelings get a vote anymore. Behind her, outside the cafe window, a sleek black car was parked across the street. I didn't need to see her to know Elise was inside. watching, calculating, maybe even enjoying the show. I wondered if she'd seen Ava reach out across the table, her fingers brushing mine in a desperate gesture. Kenzie, I know I messed up. But what you're doing, this isn't you. I pulled my hand away. You don't know who I am anymore. The check arrived. Elise had already paid.
Of course she had.
When I left the cafe, Ava stayed behind, shoulders hunched, staring into a cup she hadn't touched. I didn't look back. I walked across the street without hesitation, slipped into Elise's car, and shut the door like I was sealing off the past for good.
She didn't greet me.
Just watched me silently, her face a mask. How much did you hear? I asked, breath still shallow from the confrontation. Enough. She's a mess. She always was, Elise said, but there was something tight in her voice. You handled it well. I wasn't sure if I wanted to slap her or hug her. You didn't do either. That's power. I turned to face her fully. Did you enjoy watching me tear her down? Immensely. You're not even pretending to hide it. Why should I? She asked coolly. It's not like I have to seduce you. I didn't answer right away. The car was too warm. Or maybe it was her. She said you were using me. And you're not using me? She asked. Let's not pretend this isn't mutual exploitation. So we agree then? I said, trying to sound as unaffected as she did. No feelings. No complications. Elise looked at me for a long, agonizing moment. Then she reached out and touched the side of my face, lightly, deliberately, like she was testing the temperature of something she shouldn't be touching. My breath caught. I don't do feelings, she said softly. But complications? Her thumb grazed my cheek. I thrive on those. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Her touch lingered a second too long. Her gaze dropped to my lips for a flicker. And suddenly, everything in the air between us felt heavier. You're playing a dangerous game, I whispered. Good, she murmured. So are you. When we got back to the penthouse, the silence between us wasn't cold anymore. It was charged. She poured herself a glass of wine, her movements slow, almost feline. I leaned against the kitchen counter, watching her. Do you always get what you want? I asked. Eventually. Even me? Her eyes met mine, something flickering beneath the surface. Especially you. I walked away before I did something stupid, like ask her to kiss me. Or worse, ask her to mean it. I found the note on my pillow just after midnight. Written in Elise's sharp, slanted handwriting on thick stationery, it was short, efficient, and absolutely infuriating. Tomorrow, we host the Langford Foundation Gala. It's expected we arrive and leave together. The press will be there. You'll wear the navy gown, already delivered. We'll stay at the Langford estate overnight. There is only one room, planned accordingly. I crushed the paper in my hand, my chest tight. One room, one bed, one charade we could no longer perform from a safe emotional distance. 4 days we had maintained the fragile boundary of separation. Guest room for me, master suite for her, a polite silence broken only by staged outings, rehearsed smiles, and the occasional glance that lingered a second too long. But this would be different. Overnight, under one roof, no exits. I didn't sleep. And by the next evening, as the limo glided through the wrought iron gates of the Langford estate, I felt like I was walking into a trap of my own making. Elise, of course, was unreadable. Dressed in a midnight black gown with a plunging back and diamonds at her throat, she looked like royalty molded from ice and ambition. I wore the navy dress she chose for me, silk, off-shoulder, hugging every inch of me with indecent precision. She hadn't said I looked beautiful. She hadn't needed to. The way her eyes swept over me when I entered the room was enough. The gala was a blur of cameras, champagne, and carefully curated affection. Elise touched me only when she had to, but each contact was calculated, her fingers grazing the curve of my waist as she leaned in to whisper nothing at all, her hand resting briefly on the small of my back as we greeted donors. You're doing well, she murmured once as we stood in the middle of the crowd, sipping champagne beneath a chandelier that cost more than my entire life. You look like you belong here. Funny, I said without smiling. I was just thinking I've never felt more out of place. Then you're doing it right, she said, clinking her glass gently against mine. Hours later, after the last guest had been ushered out and the estate fell into silence, Elise led me up the grand staircase, without a word. Her heels clicked softly on the marble, each step echoing like a countdown. The bedroom was everything I expected, sleek, immaculate, intimidating. The bed was massive, but still it was one bed. You can take the left side, she said, slipping out of her heels with practiced ease. You assume I'm sleeping in here? You signed a contract, she replied. We're supposed to look like a couple, even behind closed doors. No one's watching now. Elise turned, slowly, her gaze settling on me. I am. The silence between us stretched. I wanted to be angry, wanted to throw the contract in her face and storm off into the guest room. But the truth was, I didn't want to leave, and that scared me more than anything. I turned away from her and headed into the bathroom, locking the door behind me. My hands trembled as I removed my earrings, wiped off my lipstick, and stared at my reflection. I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. Not the way her cheeks flushed remembering the press of Elise's hand. Not the way her heartbeat quickened at the idea of sharing a bed with her. This was supposed to be about revenge.
Control.
Image. So why did it suddenly feel so intimate? When I emerged, Elise was already under the covers, one arm draped over a pillow, her bare shoulders exposed beneath a silk camisole that did nothing to soften the razor edges of her beauty. She didn't look up as I walked around the bed and slid beneath the sheets, careful not to brush against her. I kept to my side.
So did she.
But the silence was unbearable. You said you don't do feelings, I whispered into the dark. I don't. Then why did you watch me at the cafe, like you wanted to set her on fire? A beat of silence. Then, because I don't like losing. She wasn't yours to lose. Neither are you, she said softly, and for the first time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like regret. We lay in silence for what felt like hours. I could feel the warmth of her body beside mine, the steady rhythm of her breath. My mind was a war zone of confusion and longing and doubt. And then, without thinking, I said, "Do you miss being in love?" Another pause. Then, I was never in love. Not once. No, that's sad. No, she said. It's safe. And, do you feel safe with me? I asked, barely audible. This time she didn't answer. I closed my eyes, hating how much I wanted her to. Eventually, sleep claimed me. I woke in the middle of the night to find myself curled toward her, our bodies almost touching, my hand resting inches from hers. Elise was awake, staring at the ceiling, breathing slowly, deliberately, like she was pretending to be asleep. I should have pulled away. I didn't. I let myself stay there, close enough to feel the heat of her, close enough to wonder if she felt me too. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. But something in that silence was louder than any confession. When the morning light finally spilled through the tall windows, Elise was gone. The space beside me cold.
Empty.
Untouched. But on my side of the bed, folded neatly atop my dress, was another note. You did well. Be ready for the charity brunch. Bring the green heels. I'll see you at 11. No signature. No softness. Just cold instructions written by the woman who'd slept inches from me and still somehow managed to make me feel like I was the one who got too close. The charity brunch was a blur of champagne flutes, artificial smiles, and too many eyes watching our every move. I wore the heels Elise requested, green satin, dangerously high, and exactly the kind of subtle flex the fashion blogs would dissect for days.
She didn't compliment me. She didn't need to.
When I stepped out of the car and into the sun-drenched courtyard where the elite mingled, Elise simply offered her arm, and I slipped mine through it like we'd done it 1,000 times. But something was different. Her grip on me was firmer than usual, her jaw tighter, her replies to compliments colder. I noticed it first when a young tech heir leaned a little too close to me during conversation, smiling in that entitled, practiced way rich boys do. "I've never seen you before," he said, eyes traveling over me like I was something for sale. Are you from New York? Before I could respond, Elise stepped in, her voice smooth but cutting. She's from wherever I am. The guy laughed awkwardly, misreading the ice in her tone. Didn't realize Elise Langford had a soft spot. I don't, she said, her eyes never leaving his. But I protect what's mine. He left 2 minutes later. I didn't say anything at first. Just let her guide me through the event like a queen leading her chosen consort. But once we were alone in the car, I turned to her, heart still thudding. That was a bit much. He was disrespectful. He was just flirting. He was touching you. You touch me all the time. That's different. I stared at her. Why? Because I know when to stop, she snapped, her voice low and sharp. Do you? I challenged. Her gaze burned into me. You think this is a game, she said, but you forget who made the rules. Maybe I'm tired of playing by them. Then stop pretending you're not enjoying it. The car fell into silence, thick and electric. She was still furious when we got home. I could feel it in the way she moved, tense, precise, like every step was a decision. I followed her into the penthouse, tossed my clutch on the kitchen island, and crossed my arms. You were jealous, I said. Elise turned, slowly. Don't flatter yourself. You were. You hated seeing him touch me. I hated seeing him act like you were his to touch. And you think you have that right? She stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. You agreed to this. You agreed to be mine in the eyes of the world. But what about behind closed doors? I asked, voice rising. What are we here, Elise? Still pretending. We're always pretending. Then why does it feel so real? She didn't answer. Instead, she stared at me for a long, dangerous second. And then, like a thread snapping, she crossed the distance between us. Her hand caught my jaw, not roughly, but firm enough to make me look at her. Say it again, she whispered. Say you think I was jealous. My breath hitched. You were. Her eyes darkened. I'm not supposed to want you, but you do. And you want me, she said, lips brushing the air near mine. Don't lie. I didn't. I couldn't. My heart was racing, my skin burning, every cell in my body screaming at me to stop thinking and just fall.
So I did.
I kissed her first. Or maybe she kissed me. It didn't matter. All I knew was her mouth was on mine, and it wasn't soft. It was claiming. It was months of tension detonating between our bodies. Her hands were in my hair, then at my waist, pulling me flush against her. She tasted like wine and war, and something I hadn't let myself crave until now. When she lifted me onto the kitchen counter, I gasped, breaking the kiss for half a second. You don't do feelings, I whispered against her lips. This isn't feelings, she growled, trailing kisses down my neck. This is fire. Then burn me.
She did.
Right there, under the soft glow of her $1,000,000 light fixtures, Elise Langford kissed me like I was the only thing left in her world she couldn't control. Her fingers skimmed the hem of my dress, her body pressed between my legs, her breath hot against my throat. And I let her. No, I wanted her.
Desperately.
I hadn't touched anyone since Ava. I hadn't wanted to, but this wasn't about filling a void. It was about consuming something forbidden. When she finally pulled back, both of us breathless, her eyes searched mine like she was looking for the part of herself she just gave away. This doesn't change anything, she said. Doesn't it? I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back, smoothing her hair, pretending her world hadn't just tilted. We'll continue as planned, she said, her voice carefully neutral. No one needs to know. And us. There is no us, Elise said. But she didn't look at me when she said it. That night, we didn't speak. She locked herself in her study. I stayed in the master suite, lying in the same bed where we hadn't touched for weeks, until today. My lips still tingled from her kiss. My body ached for more. And somewhere deep inside me, a question bloomed like poison. If this was all still pretend, why did it hurt so much to be left alone? We didn't speak for 2 days. Not a word. Not a glance. Not even a passing nod in the mirrored hallways of the penthouse. Elise buried herself in meetings and strategy calls, her voice sharp through the closed door of her study, cutting down analysts and executives with practiced detachment. I stayed mostly in the guest room, sketching furiously, trying to silence the storm spinning inside me by losing myself in lines and shadows that refused to behave. But no matter how many pages I filled, I kept drawing her. Her mouth. Her eyes. The curve of her spine when she kissed me like it was the only way she knew how to feel something. The silence between us wasn't cold. It was heavy. Charged. Like a thunderstorm waiting for a reason to strike again. I tried to convince myself it didn't mean anything. That it was a lapse, a release, a product of too many lies stacked too close to our skin. But every time I caught the scent of her lingering in the sheets, or passed by the spot where she'd kissed me breathless, something in me tightened. I'd kissed women before. I'd loved before. But nothing had ever felt like that. And worse, nothing had ever stayed with me like that. On the third night, I heard the door to her study open at nearly midnight. I sat frozen in bed, lights off, sketchbook forgotten beside me. Her footsteps paused outside the guest room. My pulse raced. Then nothing. She walked away. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, dressed in gray slacks and a loose cashmere sweater that looked far too soft for someone so ruthless. She didn't look up from her coffee. "We have a benefit to attend tonight." Her voice was neutral, rehearsed. "Another one?" I asked, reaching for a mug. "It's never-ending. That's what they don't tell you about being rich. You're constantly pretending to care about things you secretly loathe." I studied her face. She hadn't slept well. There were faint shadows beneath her eyes, and she kept pressing her thumb against the rim of the cup like it was grounding her. "And what will I be wearing tonight?" asked, trying to sound casual.
Red. Backless.
Provocative. "So, I'm your distraction again?" "You've always been more than that," she said, too quickly. We both froze. Her eyes flicked to mine. I didn't press her. Not yet. The event that evening was smaller, an elite dinner with politicians, financiers, and the kind of people who smiled as they plotted the collapse of empires. Elise played the room like a concert violinist, poised and untouchable. I played my part, too, laughing lightly at things I didn't understand, leaning in just enough to make the cameras catch her hand resting on my thigh. But the touches were different now. Hesitant. Lingering. Like neither of us could decide where the line was anymore. After dessert, a guest approached us, a woman in her early 40s, sleek, polished, and clearly amused by our presence. "You must be Elise's wife," she said to me, extending her hand. "Kenzie, was it?" "Yes," I said, forcing a smile. "Pleasure." "She never brings anyone twice," the woman said, eyes gleaming. "So whatever you're doing, it's working." I glanced at Elise. Her jaw flexed. "She's not doing anything," Elise said, a touch too sharp. "She's simply herself." "And that's enough for you?" the woman asked, teasing. Elise didn't blink. "It's more than I ever thought I deserved." The silence that followed was deafening. The woman excused herself with a smirk, sensing she'd stirred something she shouldn't. I turned to Elise slowly. Was that for her benefit or mine? "It doesn't matter." "It does to me," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Because I can't keep pretending you don't affect me." Her eyes flicked to mine, guarded. "We agreed. I know what we agreed. But it's not that simple anymore." "It is for me." "Liar," I whispered. "You kissed me like you meant it." She looked away. "That was a mistake." "Then make it again," I challenged. Her breath hitched, barely. She turned and walked toward the car. I followed. The ride home was silent again, but it wasn't avoidance this time. It was tension wound too tight. When we entered the penthouse, I stopped just inside the door. "Tell me to go back to the guest room," I said. Elise stood at the window, the city lights casting her in soft silver. "What?" "Tell me you don't want this. Tell me I imagined everything." She didn't move. I stepped closer. Elise. Still nothing. So I closed the distance. One step, then another. until I was behind her, close enough to feel the heat of her body against mine. I reached for her hand.
She let me.
You're scared, I said softly. So am I. This wasn't supposed to happen, she whispered. I didn't want this. Want what? I asked. She turned slowly, and I saw it. All the restraint, all the fear, all the longing. You. I didn't give her time to retreat. I kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, letting it say everything we refused to speak. Her hands gripped my waist, then my back, pulling me closer like she was trying to erase the space between us forever. When we finally broke apart, our foreheads rested together, our breaths tangled. We're in trouble, I murmured.
Yes, she said.
And I don't care anymore. We didn't sleep apart that night. And when she wrapped her arms around me in the dark, there was no contract between us. No rules. No lies. Only the truth neither of us was ready to say out loud. I didn't expect the morning after to feel so calm. No panic, no regret, no awkward tension hanging between tangled sheets. Just sunlight filtering through the windows and the warmth of Elise's bare skin pressed lightly against mine. She slept on her side, one arm curled under her pillow, the other loosely draped around my waist like some subconscious instinct she couldn't fight. I didn't move, not for a long time. I just lay there and watched her, memorized the softness in her features that only appeared when she was unconscious. The fine lines around her eyes. The way her lips parted slightly when she exhaled. I'd never seen her like this, unguarded, human, beautiful without even trying. But beauty was never the problem. Vulnerability was. She stirred slightly, and her fingers twitched against my hip. Then her eyes blinked open, slow and cautious. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she saw me. And she didn't flinch. Good morning, I whispered. Her voice was husky from sleep. Is it? Depends on whether you're going to pretend this didn't happen. She didn't answer. Just stared at me like she was still trying to solve the puzzle of what we were becoming. I'm not going to run, I said gently. You don't have to push me away. She reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and let her fingers linger against my cheek. This wasn't in the contract. No, I said, leaning into her touch. But maybe it's the only part that feels real. That was as close to soft as Elise got. The day moved slowly after that. She had meetings. I had a commission I ignored. We didn't talk about what happened, but something between us had changed. The air was warmer. The silences were less defensive. She passed me a coffee without being asked. I caught her looking at me twice from across the room. But peace, I was learning, was never permanent when you shared a life with Elise Langford. It started with a call. One she took in her office, door half open, voice sharp and clipped. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her tone, that subtle edge of panic buried under professionalism, pulled me toward the hallway. What do you mean someone leaked it? She said. A pause.
No.
You shut it down. I don't care how much it costs. Another pause. Then lower. If they publish photos, the board will start asking questions. My stomach turned. I stepped into the doorway. She looked up and didn't even try to hide it. It's begun, she said flatly. What has? Someone sold pictures. Of us. My heart jumped. From where? The gala. And the dinner. And last night, apparently. Last night. We weren't as alone as we thought, she said tightly. The Langford estate has more eyes than walls. And someone was watching. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. So, what do we do? She stood, pacing now. Damage control. We release a statement. We pretend we're head over heels and want the world to know. Isn't that what we've been doing? Yes, she said, stopping suddenly. But now we don't control the narrative. Now they'll start digging. And what if they find out this started as a lie? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The truth would ruin both of us. So we double down, I said. We make it real for them. We let them believe we're madly in love. That's dangerous. So, is pretending I can walk away from this without getting hurt? Her expression cracked for a split second. Then, quietly, Kenzie, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't mean for you to happen. You think I did? I stepped closer. I was ready to burn my life down. You handed me the match. And you lit it.
No, I said.
We did. Elise exhaled, then reached for my hand. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a confession. She held it tightly, like someone reaching for something before it disappeared. We'll go public, she said. Not just a press release. An interview. Together. We control the message. And what's the message? That we're in love. And are we? I asked softly. She hesitated. Her grip tightened. I don't know. But you feel it. She didn't answer. But she didn't let go. The next few days were chaos. Her team scrambled to clean up the leak, but the story was already spreading. Elise Langford, cold, unreachable, queen of stone and silence, was in love. Suddenly, we were the narrative. Headlines. Hashtags. Speculation. Commentators dissected every photo, every glance. Paparazzi waited outside the penthouse. We didn't leave for days. Elise hated being caged. I saw it in the way she paced the windows, restless and tight-jawed. One night, she stood at the balcony doors for so long I thought she might shatter. I walked up behind her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and whispered, "You're not alone in this." She leaned back into me slowly, like she didn't trust the feeling yet but needed it anyway. "If they find out the truth, then we tell them a new one," I said. "One that isn't about revenge. One that's about us. And if there is no us." I turned her around, met her eyes. "Then tell me to go."
Right now.
"Tell me this means nothing. Tell me you feel nothing." Her silence was the loudest answer I'd ever heard. "I didn't want this," she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how much I needed it." "Then stop fighting it," I said. "Just be here with me." And for the first time, Elise Langford kissed me not because the world demanded it, not because the cameras were waiting, not because it was in some perfectly worded contract, but because she wanted to, because she could not, because the lie had become something too real to ignore. The interview was scheduled for 7 p.m. sharp. Prime time. A full hour of national television where Elise Langford, the woman who didn't blink under pressure or smile unless it was weaponized, would have to look into a camera and lie. Or maybe not lie at all. That was the part that terrified her. Not the questions, not the cameras, not even the vultures watching to see if she'd flinch. No, what scared Elise was sitting beside me in a soft emerald dress she had chosen, legs crossed, calm, radiant, unshakably real, and not being able to pretend she didn't feel anything. The makeup artist had barely finished before Elise was already adjusting her cuffs like she could fix this whole situation with symmetry. "You don't have to be perfect tonight," I said quietly, watching her in the mirror. "You just have to be honest." Her eyes flicked to mine, cool as ever. Honesty isn't always strategic. Neither is falling in love.
She didn't respond.
But the way her fingers paused, just slightly, on the sleeve of her blazer told me I'd struck a nerve. We walked onto the set like two people who had rehearsed this 100 times. But there was nothing rehearsed about the way our knees brushed under the table, or how her hand, for the briefest second, slid over mine as the host welcomed us. "Elise Langford." The host began with a warm smile. "You've never spoken publicly about your private life. Why now?" "Because this isn't just private," Elise said evenly, her voice steady. "It's important." "What changed?" Elise's eyes flicked to me, just briefly, then back to the camera. "Kenzie did." My breath caught. The host leaned in, intrigued. "So, how did you two meet?" Elise smiled, small, measured, but real. "We knew each other before. Mutual circles. But we didn't really see each other until I got humiliated in front of the world," I said, finishing for her. "And she offered me the most unexpected proposal of my life." "Which was?" "Revenge," I said honestly. "And safety. In exchange for pretending to be her fiancé." The host blinked. So, this started as fake? Elise didn't even blink. Yes. And now? The question hung there.
Sharp.
Hungry. A trap waiting to snap. Elise looked at me again. This time longer.
Slower.
As if she was searching for the right lie and couldn't find it. Now it's the most real thing in my life. My throat tightened. The cameras faded. The lights blurred. And for a second it was just us. Two women on a stage built from lies, finally telling the truth. After the interview, the producers swarmed us. Congratulating, gushing, already pitching magazine spreads and exclusives. Elise nodded politely, accepted the compliments, then pulled me gently by the hand into a quiet hallway where no one could see her lose control. That wasn't the plan, she said, voice low. You said we'd be careful. You didn't lie, I said. You told them the truth. I wasn't supposed to. I stepped closer. Why does it scare you so much? Because feelings are weakness. No, I said softly. Feelings are what make you human. And I think you've been lonely for a long time, Elise. Her breath caught. You think you know me. I do know you. Then why are you still here? She asked, eyes suddenly glassy. Why haven't you run? Everyone runs. I didn't hesitate. Because I love you. The words fell out of me before I could stop them. Not for strategy. Not for show. Just truth. Pure and bare and terrifying. Elise froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came. And for a heartbeat, I thought she'd shut down.
Run.
Retreat behind her fortress of logic and control. But then she did the opposite. She stepped forward, grabbed my face in both hands, and kissed me like the world was ending. And maybe it was, at least, the world we knew. She kissed me like someone who had held back for too long, who didn't believe in love until it knocked the air from her lungs. And when she pulled back, her eyes were wide and uncertain. Kenzie, she whispered, almost like it hurt to say. I don't know how to do this. You don't have to know, I said. You just have to try. What if I fail? Then fail with me. She shook her head slowly, voice breaking. I can't lose you. Then stop fighting me. A beat of silence. And then, finally, the words I'd been waiting for. I love you too. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't Elise Langford, the businesswoman, the strategist, the cold billionaire who never needed anyone. It was Elise, the woman. The one I'd fallen for without meaning to. The one who'd made me believe in second chances. That night, we didn't pretend. There was no contract, no act, no performance. Only us. And when we lay in bed, tangled in each other, the city lights outside felt less distant. This changes everything, she whispered against my shoulder. Good, I whispered back. I'm ready. The morning of the real wedding didn't feel like the first. There was no chaos, no trembling hands, no bouquet to drop, just the quiet knowledge that I was choosing this, choosing her. Elise had barely slept the night before. I knew because I'd stayed awake beside her, watching the shadows move across her face as she stared at the ceiling like it might collapse at any moment. You don't have to do this, I had whispered once. Her voice was steady, but soft. Yes, I do. Now, as the soft spring sunlight spilled through the windows of a private estate far from the city, I stood in front of a mirror wearing white again, but this time it didn't feel like a costume. The dress wasn't dramatic. It wasn't layered or laced or trying to say anything except this is me. Simple, elegant,
Strong.
The woman who had once walked away from a wedding in tears was gone. And in her place was someone who had survived heartbreak, revenge, and the most dangerous thing of all, falling in love with someone who didn't believe in it. Until now. I didn't see Elise until the moment I walked down the path lined with soft white flowers, the handful of guests standing on either side. No press, no paparazzi, just the people who mattered. Her.
Me. Us.
She wore a black suit, sharp and perfect, but the moment I saw her face, nothing else mattered. She was looking at me like I was gravity. Like if she looked away, she might float off the earth. My heart thundered in my chest, but not from fear. From certainty. I reached her.
She reached for my hands.
Her fingers trembled just barely. We faced the officiant, but her eyes never left mine. Do you, Kenzie Bishop, choose Elise Langford to be your partner from this day forward? I do, I said, without hesitation, even when she's difficult. A soft ripple of laughter passed through the small group. Elise's lips twitched, even when she's wrong. Always, I finished. Because she's mine. The officiant smiled. And do you, Elise Langford, choose Kenzie Bishop to be your partner, your equal, your love? There was a pause. Her eyes burned into mine. I've built empires, she said, voice clear, strong, but full of something I had never heard from her before. Vulnerability. I've owned companies, crushed rivals, lived my life with control as my religion. And then you walked in and ruined everything. A soft murmur ran through the guests, amused and moved all at once. You made me feel things I didn't think I was capable of. You terrified me. You made me want. And for someone like me, that's dangerous. But it's also the only thing that's ever made me feel alive. Her grip on my hands tightened. So yes, I choose you. I choose to love you. I choose to be yours. For real. Forever. Then, by the power vested in me, the officiant said gently, I now pronounce you married. Elise didn't wait for permission. She pulled me into a kiss that wasn't perfect or posed. It was messy, breathless, a collision of joy and relief and the weight of everything we'd survived. And when we broke apart, there were tears in both our eyes. Real ones. No contracts. No performance. Just truth. 3 weeks later, we were on a private island, far from New York, far from headlines and expectations. I painted in the mornings. She read beside me, sunlight on her skin, bare feet brushing mine beneath the lounge chairs. At night, we made love like it was still the first time, or the last, or both. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Elise turned to me and said, Do you ever wonder how different this would have been if she hadn't cheated on you? I shook my head.
No.
Because I would have never met this version of you. And I would have never become this version of me. She smiled. The rare, soft kind that only I got to see. Do you think we deserve this? We fought for it, I said. We chose it. She leaned over, kissed my shoulder and whispered, Then I'm never letting go. And she never did. Not in the years that followed. Not when we faced whispers or doubt. Not when the world asked if we were still together. We were, because we didn't fall in love. We rose into it, through fire, through fury, through fear. Together. For real this time. Forever. Thank you so much for your support, whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.